She called the cops and pointed at the old couple like they were criminals. "Arrest them. They're trespassing in this neighborhood." I was standing right there when it happened. The sun was barely up, the street still quiet, and two elderly people were sitting on the curb with their suitcases beside them. The old man looked tired. The kind of tired you see when someone hasn't slept all night. His wife held his hand tightly, like she was scared if she let go, everything would fall apart. And then Karen showed up. Her white SUV stopped in the middle of the road like she owned the street. She stepped out holding a clipboard and wearing sunglasses even though the sun wasn't that bright yet. Without even saying hello, she walked straight toward the couple and slammed a paper against the old man's chest. "You have 30 minutes to leave," she snapped. "HOA rules. This property is no longer yours." The old man blinked slowly. "Ma'am, this is our son's house." Karen laughed. Not a normal laugh. The kind that makes people around you uncomfortable. "Was," she corrected. "Your son hasn't paid HOA fees for months. That means the property is under HOA authority now, and we don't allow situations like this." She looked at their suitcases with disgust. The old woman's voice shook. "We just arrived yesterday. Our son said we could stay here while he works out of state." Karen folded her arms. "Well, he should have read the rules before bringing strangers here." "Strangers." The old man lowered his head. For a moment he looked like he might say something, but he stayed quiet. That's when the tow truck pulled up. I frowned. "Wait, whose car are you towing?" Karen pointed straight at the old couple's small blue sedan parked in the driveway. "That one. It's violating HOA parking policy." The old woman stood up quickly. "No, please. That's our only car." The driver hesitated. "Ma'am, are you sure?" Karen cut him off. "I'm the HOA president. Do your job." The chain started clanking as he hooked the car. The old woman began to cry softly. The old man just stared at the ground, gripping his cane so hard his knuckles turned white. And that's when I stepped forward. "Hold on," I said calmly. "You can't tow that car." Karen turned toward me slowly like she had just noticed I existed. "And who are you supposed to be?" she asked. "Neighbor," I said. "And someone who knows HOA? Rules don't let you throw elderly people onto the street." She smirked. "Oh, really? Then maybe you should read Section 14, Unauthorized Occupants. Can be removed immediately," the old man whispered, almost to himself. "We're not unauthorized. This is our son's home." Karen pulled out her phone and started dialing. "Perfect," she said. "Let's have the police explain it." The old woman looked terrified now. Within minutes, a police cruiser turned the corner. Karen waved them down dramatically. "Officers! These people broke into a home and refused to leave!" The cops stepped out, confused. The old man tried to speak. "Sir, we didn't break—" Karen pointed at them again. "They're lying. And that man interfering," she said, nodding at me, "might be part of it." One officer looked at me. "You live here?" "Yeah," I said calmly. Karen crossed her arms, clearly enjoying the show. But then something strange happened. The older officer suddenly looked closely at the old man's face, like he recognized him. His expression changed. Slowly, he stepped closer. "Sir," the officer said quietly, "can I ask your name?" The old man hesitated before answering. "Robert Hayes." The officer's eyes widened. Karen rolled her eyes. "Great, now can you remove them already?" But the officer didn't move. Instead, he stared at Karen, then back at the old man. And what he said next made the entire street go silent. "Ma'am, do you have any idea who this man is?" Karen scoffed. "I don't care who he is." The officer took a slow breath. "You probably should." Karen let out an annoyed sigh and flipped. Her hair, like the officer had, just wasted her time. "I told you already," she said sharply, pointing at the old couple again. "They don't belong here. HOA rules are clear." But the officer didn't even look at her this time. His eyes stayed on the old man. "Mr. Hayes." "Robert Hayes?" he asked again, slower now. The old man nodded slightly. "Yes?" The officer straightened his back like someone had just pulled a string. His partner noticed it too and whispered, "You know him?" Karen clapped her hands impatiently. "Hello, officers? Can we finish this already?" The older officer finally turned toward her. "Ma'am, before we do anything, I need you to calm down." Karen blinked in disbelief. Calm down. They're trespassing. The officer pointed gently toward the old man. That man right there is a retired colonel. The street went quiet. Karen frowned. So? The officer continued, his voice now carrying a different tone. Colonel Robert Hayes served 32 years in the Army, 2 tours overseas, Purple Heart recipient. The tow truck driver slowly stopped tightening the chains on the car. Karen laughed like it meant nothing. Okay, and? The officer's partner looked at her like she had just said something crazy, and, the officer added firmly, he helped train half the emergency response teams in this county. The old man shifted uncomfortably. Officer, that was a long time ago. But Karen waved her hand dismissively. None of that matters. HOA rules don't care about military stories. That line made a few neighbors step outside their houses. The officer's jaw tightened. Ma'am, respect matters. Karen leaned closer to him, lowering her voice like she was sharing a secret. Respect doesn't pay HOA fees. The old woman squeezed her husband's arm nervously. Robert, maybe we should just go, she whispered. That sentence hit harder than anything. The officer heard it too. Go where? He asked gently. The old man didn't answer right away. His eyes stayed on the ground. Our son said he'd fix the payment when he got paid next week, he finally said quietly. We didn't want trouble. Karen laughed again. Oh, he'll have bigger trouble. I've already started foreclosure paperwork. The neighbors gasped. Wait, I said. HOAs can't just take houses that fast. Karen pulled another paper from her clipboard and waved it in the air. This neighborhood has special enforcement rights. The officer reached for the paper. She hesitated but handed it over with a smug smile. He read it slowly. Then his partner leaned closer. Their expressions changed. Karen noticed. What? She snapped. The older officer lowered the paper. Ma'am, this isn't foreclosure paperwork. Karen blinked. Of course it is. He shook his head. This is a warning notice, she scoffed. Same thing. No, he said firmly. Very different. Karen's smile faded a little. You can't remove residents based on a warning notice. For the first time, she looked slightly nervous. That's temporary language, she muttered. But the officer's partner pointed at another line. And according to this, the property isn't even under HOA enforcement right now. Karen's head snapped up. What? He turned the page around so she could see it. Look at the date. Karen grabbed the paper. Her face stiffened. The document had expired 3 weeks ago. The tow truck driver slowly started unhooking the chains. Karen quickly stepped forward. Stop! I didn't authorize that! The driver shrugged. Lady, I'm not towing a veteran's car over expired paperwork. Neighbors were fully outside now, whispering. Karen's voice got louder. This isn't over! I'm the HOA president! The older officer crossed his arms. Maybe? Karen froze. What does that mean? The officer pulled out his phone and tapped something. Because the county received a complaint about HOA misconduct last night. Karen's face went pale. From who? She demanded. The officer looked down the street, then back at her. From the actual homeowner. Everyone looked at the house. Karen's voice cracked slightly. That's impossible. He's out of state. The officer tilted his head. Is he? Right then. A black truck slowly turned into the street, and when the driver stepped out, the old couple both stood up at the same time. David? The old woman whispered. Karen's confident smile disappeared instantly. Because the man walking toward us wasn't alone. Behind him, another police car pulled up. Karen's face turned stiff as the second police car stopped. The man who stepped out of the black truck walked straight to the elderly couple. Mom, Dad, I'm sorry you had to deal with this. The old woman hugged him tightly. David, what's happening? David looked calm, almost too calm. Then he turned toward Karen. She forced a smile. Oh, good, you're finally here. Your parents were trespassing and... Stop, David said quietly. That one word made the whole street silent. Karen laughed nervously. Excuse me? David pulled a folder from his truck and handed it to the older officer. I recorded everything this morning. And I also have something else. Karen folded her arms again. You think some little video will scare me? The officer opened the folder. His eyes widened. He showed the document to his partner. Karen leaned forward. "What is it now?" The officer looked at her slowly. "Ma'am, this property was never under HOA authority." Karen blinked. "That's ridiculous." David shook his head. "No, what's ridiculous is you pretending to be HOA president." The neighbors gasped. Karen's voice rose instantly. "I am the president." David calmly pulled out his phone and pressed play. Karen's voice echoed from the recording. "Most people don't check HOA records. I basically run this neighborhood now." The officer looked straight at her. "Ma'am, the real HOA board filed a complaint last night." Karen's confidence finally cracked. "What complaint?" The officer stepped closer. "Fraud, illegal towing, and impersonating HOA authority." Karen backed up slowly. "That's not—" The officer raised his hand. "And there's one more problem." Karen froze. He pointed at the elderly man. "You tried to remove a decorated military veteran from his own son's home." The cuffs came out. Karen's voice shook. "You can't arrest me," the officer replied calmly. "Watch me." Karen's shouting slowly faded as the police car door shut behind her. For the first time that morning, the street was completely quiet. The neighbors, who had been watching from their lawns, started whispering to each other. Some looked shocked. Others looked relieved. David walked back toward his parents. His mother still looked shaken. Are we really allowed to stay?" David smiled softly and held her hands. "Mom, this is your home." The tow truck driver finished removing the chains from the car and gave Robert a respectful nod. "Sir, thank you for your service." Robert looked embarrassed but smiled slightly. "Just did my job." The officer who had first recognized him stepped forward and shook his hand. "Colonel Hayes, the county is already reviewing everything. That woman won't be running anything ever again." David then turned toward the small crowd of neighbors. "For months she's been threatening people here," he said calmly. "Fake fines, fake rules, even fake tow orders." A few neighbors nodded quickly. One woman stepped forward. "She made my husband pay $2,000 in yard violations." The officer wrote something in his notebook. "You should all file reports. The county wants every case." Karen's police car slowly pulled away down the street, and as it disappeared around the corner, people actually started clapping. Robert looked around, surprised. "I didn't expect all this," he said quietly. "You spent your life protecting people. Today we just returned the favor." Later that evening, the neighborhood looked completely different. Kids were playing again. Neighbors were talking in driveways. The tension that Karen had created for months was finally gone. Robert sat on the porch beside his wife watching the sunset. After a long silence, he said something simple but powerful. "I didn't spend 30 years serving this country just to be told I don't belong in my own home." His wife squeezed his hand. Across the street, neighbors waved. And for the first time since moving there, the Hayes family truly felt like they were home.